Where it gets skewed is when people look at someone in my position as a potential target to take advantage of. There's no time when you are more prey to people who pretend to want to help you out.
Welcome to Lonely at the Top, a podcast for high-level leaders carrying the invisible weight of the world on their shoulders, because you know the higher you rise, the fewer people you can safely talk to. Here we welcome founders, executives, and decision makers who feel the isolation and pressure that comes with power. Lonely at the Top is your sanctuary in the storm, and I'm your host, soul medic and former psychotherapist Rachel Alexandria. Today, I've been so excited for this interview for a while. Today we have Meg Gluth. She's the owner and CEO of Catalynt Solutions Incorporated, one of the largest certified women-owned chemical distributors in North America. She's the first female chair of the Board of Alliance for Chemical Distribution, driving industry innovation and leadership. Under her guidance, Catalynt was named to the 2023 Middle Market Fast 50 list by Puget Sound Business Journal, where she was also honored as a Fast 50 leader. Meg is a winner of the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year 2023, recognizing her impact on business growth and innovation. I am so honored that you have taken the time to come and be on the show today. Thank you so much, Meg.
Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yay! So we've known each other for a little bit of time.
We have.
Connected by one of my friends who thought that you might want to do some work with me.
Yes,
Yeah, if that's okay that we talk about or mention
of course. Of course.
I know a great deal about a lot of the testing that you've gone through. You're actually one of the reasons why I created this show.
Very
Because
cool.
you and some of my other CEO clients kept saying to me, just kind of off the cuff, how lonely it is at the top. And that I am one of the few people that you get to just lay your burdens down with. And I thought,
Yeah.
well, we should talk about that on the show.
Yes, we should. We should, because it isn't talked about anywhere often enough, I think.
Yeah. So, how long have you been in leadership in general?
I'll just give a quick snapshot. I started my career actually in law. I was an attorney, first in the Midwest, and then I moved out to the West Coast. And when I was making the decision to move to Seattle, actually, I met through the introduction of a former law school classmate, a man who owned a chemical distribution company. And the introduction was made simply because I was interviewing at various law firms in Seattle. And the thought was that he had this friend that knew people, and maybe he would know somebody who knew something about the tone and culture of these firms, and I could get some advice and where to interview. So I sat down with him, and he and I hit it right off. He founded this company after he graduated from West Point and did military service out here on the West Coast. And I didn't know anything about the industry. I didn't know anything about him, and I didn't know anything about his company. But we had a lovely chat, and through an interesting chain of what I now know to be not at all coincidental events, he ended up offering me a job as the company's general counsel. And for reasons that they probably couldn't articulate to you right now, I decided to take that job. And I assumed that I wouldn't work here very long, honestly. I didn't know if in-house counsel was a role I wanted. I didn't know anything about this company. I wasn't even really sure why I took the job. But ultimately, I ended up falling in love with the business of this company. And as my position in the company grew, my leadership grew. I became the president first, and then the CEO, taking over for him. And ultimately, the conversation began to move in the direction of his retirement, his desire to leave the business. He was at that season of his life. And I was sort of at the start of my really middle-aged, productive years, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said to him one day, I said, if I could figure out the financing, would you sell this business to me? He thought about it, and we talked, and ultimately, that's what happened. And so I bought the majority of the business in 2019 with the idea that he would slowly leave whenever he felt like, and then I would acquire the remaining shares. But a few weeks after the ink was dry on that paperwork, the government shut down the economy for a global pandemic. which is a separate
Oh, right.
podcast in and of itself. Talk about one of the scariest moments of my life because I've never been more leveraged as I was in that moment. And he just wasn't. He just felt like I don't know if I want to keep doing this all the time. And so within a year, I acquired the remainder of the company. When I bought the company from him, we were doing about 48 to 50 million a year in revenue, and now we do a pretty steady $100 million a year in revenue.
Oof.
So I've
Wow.
doubled the size of the company in that time, not by myself. I have an incredible team of people around me and am really, really well networked with amazing business partners all over the world. But that is the very abbreviated version of how I got here.
That's so incredible and intense sounding.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how do you find the wherewithal to make those huge leaps? I mean, there's no one out there in front. You're the
Yeah.
one saying, I think I want to buy this business. Oh, now I'm facing a pandemic, and somehow I managed to double the size of revenue of the company
Hmm.
in 6 years. Like, where do you find that within yourself?
I think that it's important for me to say that the place that I'm coming from is not, I grew up on food stamps in rural Iowa. Okay. There's not a rich uncle here behind this situation. And there's certainly not an example of how this gets done in my life. I didn't grow up around people who were making big strategic moves and learning how to leverage assets. And none of that was something that I knew. I'm a very
Yeah.
self educated person in a lot of ways. I will say, though, that the answer to your question and sort of the nexus of where I came from answers the question. Like, there is within me a very strong intuitive side, and
Mm-hmm.
probably what led me to be working with you, candidly.
Mm-hmm.
Again, offering that nothing is really an accident, right? Or a coincidence. How do I dream this, or how do I envision this, or how do I make that decision isn't really mine, if that makes sense. How do I meet this man and all of a sudden feel the pull to say, yeah, I'll take your job as counsel? Like,
Mm.
that's all an intuitive moment for me, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And most of the large moments I've had in business, not most, all of the large moments I've had in business have an intuitive element to them. And so I would say that, quite honestly, my climb here has been a lot that. Do not confuse that with
Mm.
luck or good fortune, though, either. Those are
Ooh.
different things. But this idea that I have a side gig as a yoga teacher, right? So I use a lot of that language too. But there is a
Mm.
dharma that each of us have, and then there's a path that leads those things. I think a lot of that sort of conspired in my favor here.
Mm.
And I've been able to be really responsive to that and then lend my efforts in the direction of where
Mm-hmm.
that wants me to go.
Yeah. Yeah. You've just stayed open, is what it sounds like. You've
Yeah.
been attentive and seen where opportunity presents itself and then worked your butt off to
Yes.
follow it. Yeah. It's so interesting. Most of the CEOs that I know, most of them have been clients and they are very successful, all came from poverty,
Yeah.
which I don't think is the typical CEO story. So it just happens that my sample size,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, is people who came from very difficult financial circumstances. And I think that's part of what lends to that no rescuer is coming. I better hustle my butt off
Yeah.
vibe, you know?
I would agree with that, and I think that the colloquial wisdom there is then we fear poverty, and so we work really hard, and there's probably a huge element of that at play. But I think the less often discussed part is that it does make us resourceful in a way that
Mm-hmm.
maybe we wouldn't otherwise have been. There are real gifts to that, and there are real I call myself scrappy, but there's a very strong sense of this failure isn't an option. Ergo,
Really?
what am I going to do? There's some gift in that that I think
Yeah.
we often overlook because people can confuse my drive or the drive perhaps of some of your other clients with a desire for a greediness or a power hungry. It's not
Mm-mm.
really it at all. It really is. There's so much goodness in enterprise and in business that we don't talk about. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there is something really redemptive about being able to help other people pull themselves up too when you've been able to do it for yourself.
Mm-hmm. And that's something you're doing with your company.
100% every day.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
I have a sort of thing that I talk about, and I call it human-centered capitalism. And the concept being that there is a way to not shy away from the idea of profitability. I mean, at its simplest form, if I'm not making money here, I can't provide jobs, okay?
Mhm.
A lot of people
Mhm.
don't know the difference between revenue and profit, right? But if I make $100 million in revenue, I don't have $100 million in profit. In fact, quite the contrary. And so that gross profit number is how I pay people. It's how I pay 100% of health insurance benefits for my employees.
Mm.
I do things like that, right? But that's because this is
Mhm.
a profitable business. I pay
Mhm.
for a lot of employees' kids' sport teams to have new uniforms
Mhm.
and jerseys. And our company thrives on the ability to be really charitable every year. We
Mm.
have our favorite season here every year is just the season of looking around. When people go to the grocery store and they see someone who can't quite make it across the scanner, they pull out a company card and they pay that grocery bill. And we share
Mm.
that, we celebrate that.
That's so cool.
It is. And what ends up happening when people are able to elevate their status in life and where they thought they were going to go, when they start to elevate and their cup gets full, then that cup spills over and they become
Mhm.
people who want to help other people do that. And we slowly build on that. And this just becomes this cool, self fulfilling cyclone of really cool stuff. That is not to say that we don't enjoy comfortable standards of living here. That's not to
Mhm.
say that we don't give employee raises for the sake of them being able to go buy a bigger house or a better car, or whatever it is that they desire. Because none of
Mhm.
that is bad either. But we
Mhm.
have this idea of saying that we can take all of that abundance and all of that profitability and we can better the environment around us and within us
Mhm.
with that. And so I call that like a human centered capitalism, just this idea of being exactly what we say. We're not ashamed. We're a for-profit corporation, but we can do
Mhm.
something with that that's really, really meaningful without also suggesting that every employee here ought to live without that house if they want it, without that new car. I have employees here that barely graduated high school and are buying their first house. I love that.
Wow, that's
That
amazing.
that's a huge
Especially now. Wow.
yeah. And it's like some of them are changing the course of lineage and ancestry of their whole families. So that's, I guess, what we're about and what we're doing in part. I mean, we're doing a lot of things, but that's one that I'm obviously most proud of.
Yeah, that's incredible. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
listeners who might like this is genuinely me being like, that's amazing. So let's talk then about you're in a position where you're helping change people's lives and you clearly perceive that as making the company be profitable enough
Mhm.
so that you can do these things. That's a lot of weight and responsibility.
Yeah.
So let's talk about then carrying that weight and when you've gone through a time or a season that has really tested you.
Yeah. I think I'm in that right now. I've been in a lot of them, but I think sometimes it makes good sense to talk about the past and sometimes it makes good sense to talk about the present. Obviously, the pandemic was hard in the sense that we were in a time of great uncertainty. And my undergraduate degree was in history, and I still nerd out that way, right? So the ink is barely dried on this paperwork in which I've literally leveraged my entire being and ultimately made a commitment to the person who sold me this business to do the right thing with this thing that he built. And I take all of that really, really seriously. And I owe money all the time everywhere. I have a large business. There are banks. There are people who sell me supplies. There are people who sell me drums for my manufacturing plant in Chicago. I didn't want to let anybody down. And the uncertainty that came with that time is almost indescribable for me after
Mm.
that moment. And what was horrible for that time was that there was no book I could go in and look at like, okay, well, how did people handle the last great global pandemic when we shut like
Yeah,
there just that wasn't
no.
there.
I
And
know.
so you I got on the Zoom call with my entire company and I said, listen, I've never been here before and I don't know what we're going to do and I don't know what's coming. But I know we're gonna be okay, and this is the first thing we're gonna do. Everybody's taking a pay cut, and the
Mm.
largest pay cut is me, and percentage of pay cut will be largest based on higher salaries. So the more you make,
Mm.
the more your pay cut is, and we took a graduated scale like that. And I said, we're
Mm.
going to do this and run leaner operations until I know what out of the woods looks like. And when that is, I'll tell you all when that is and I'll restore everybody. And ultimately, what ended up happening is that we found opportunity where we didn't normally know to look for it. We
Mm.
did what we always did, but better. We did new things. We made new products. We sold new products. We sold more old products. We just doubled down. And I think we all worked harder than we'd ever worked before.
Mm.
And I was able to restore everyone to their salary and pay them all their back wages.
Wow.
Um, and it felt amazing.
Mm.
And so we got through that. And yet, the hope and the sort of elation of that leaves me in this present moment where we find ourselves. I don't know when this airs, but we're recording in August, and the uncertainty surrounding tariffs
Mm.
and things like
Mhm.
that for someone like myself who has an international business and also a manufacturing component to that. I am both an American manufacturer and also an importer. And my customers are all American companies who make things. And the
Mhm.
uncertainty that we find ourselves in, the inability to forecast, the inability to plan, causes us to be in a time when no one, again, knows what's coming.
Mm.
And I feel like in my business, I never know I'm going to be okay in a month until I'm at the end of the month. And so, what is happening, if you say there are 20 or 22 business days in a month, I don't know till business day 19 that things are okay. And I've never been in a season like this. I've never
Mm.
remember I was an attorney before this, and then you and your listeners can infer obviously a very type A kid, right? Planning for me is important, and my inability to
Yeah.
do that and my inability to see what's coming or to know what's going to happen has made this a very challenging time for me. I literally have nothing left to do but to fly this plane by the instruments and the
Mhm.
information I have available to me, and then again move in the energy and the spirit of failure is not an option and keep
Mhm.
going forward. That's it. That's all I
Mhm.
have.
Oof, I feel the anxiety as you talk about it. And
Hmm.
I imagine some of our listeners might too. That's kind of terrifying, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
for those who might not be necessarily in that place. What it makes me think of is late last night, I was driving back from the middle of California, like up in the mountains. We left early enough to get off the top of the mountain before it got dark. But then we're just on 99 somewhere between Fresno and Bakersfield, and it's just nothing.
Yeah.
It's just black except for when there's construction and random bright lights shining in your face. There's just you and the few cars on the road who are also whatever, and the road will twist and turn. It's just one of those dark two-lane freeways. And there's just a low key maybe this is an exaggeration to say, but it's a low key terror
Yeah.
the whole time. There's literally nothing about that I can relax because I don't know the road. That's the
100%.
thing, right? Like, I've been on dark roads when I know the road, and you still have to be at attention because you're like, well, things could jump out. I can't see everything, but it's okay. But when you don't know the road and it's dark and it twists, that's a lot to hold on an ongoing basis. And that sounds like exactly where you're at.
That's exactly where I'm. And I don't know when that road ends, and I don't know when morning is coming.
Mm, the poet in me is like, ooh, that's, yeah, feels that. What do you do with that emotionally? How do you handle that? I mean, it sounds like when the pandemic started, at the very least, you were able to talk to your employees and say, I don't know what I'm going to do or what's going to happen, but here's what we're going to try. And then we're all going to sort it out. Does that help alleviate any of the emotional burden? Talk to us about the kind of the behind the scenes of that emotionally.
There's two parts that happen when you're the person at the top, and this goes directly to the name of your podcast, right? In the emotional side, all I can do is I speak a lot on leadership. I move in places where I'm coaching and educating other people like me how to do this. And one of the things I talk about is that we just have to stay focused on attending to ourselves first.
Mm.
And so one of the things I know to do, part of my story is that I have a decent length of sobriety. So I know the power of practices and self disciplines in order to keep the vibration and the frequency for your life that you want. One of the things I know to do is to stay in my practices, to keep my body
Mm.
moving, to be mindful about what I consume, whether that be food or news, to be mindful
Mm.
of engaging in my yoga practice, my meditation practice, to stick with the things that I know that I need, even though when you're in these darkest places, and we all know what this is like, none of it ever feels like it's working and it's not enough and this isn't solving the problem and what the hell is going on. All that's happening. At least I'm aware and I'm watching that. And
Mm.
then the second element of that personal side is having a place to go. And I'll talk about that in a minute because having a place to go has a ton of asterisks after it when you're in a
Mm.
place of
Mm.
crisis as a leader. Because there's
Mm.
no time when you are more prey to people who pretend to want to help you out than those moments. And I'll come back to that. But the second side of that is that people, teams, companies, families, whatever, crave leadership at all times.
Mhm.
And when you are the leader of a company like I am, there is not a place for me to sit down and shower everyone with my uncertainty or what
Mhm.
happens for me behind closed doors. That's
Mhm.
not my role in their life, and that's not their role in my life.
Mhm.
I must stand up every day and have the optimism that I have out in front of me and out in front of them because it's just like a kid being afraid of the dark. Everything's okay when someone walks in the room and says, "You're safe. I'm not going to let anything happen." The same psychology really is present in a lot of ways in a business. And so I've sought counsel from a lot of people who are in my position before, people I consider mentors. And I had a person tell me actually yesterday in an email, he's one of my favorite people, but he just wrote to me, he said, "Meg, get up, adjust yourself, and lead your company with optimism and decide you're going to win and tell everyone that's what's going to happen and you're going to help them get there and they will follow you because people want to follow someone." And I just was
Mhm.
like, that's it, isn't it? And so that's the other side of the like what is happening emotionally is one thing in one place and there are boxes where that can happen, but then in the job, in the leadership role, there are places for my humanity, but times of uncertainty and darkness. I'm not the only one in that car on that dark road, Rachel, but I am the driver, and everybody in the
Mm.
car has to feel safe. Full stop. There's
Mm.
nobody else is coming to do that.
I don't know about you, but in times like that, I'd rather be the driver.
Yeah, I think so. Listen, everybody who's listening to this who is a CEO or whatever knows damn well that every day you wake up wishing it wasn't you and knowing it can't be anybody but you because you'd be the world's shittiest passenger. Like, you know what I mean? That is sort of that's sort of the rub, isn't it?
That's why you're there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am. Yeah, I wish I wasn't on the road.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, my fiance is like, I can drive, and I'm like, I will feel worse.
Yeah.
I would so
It's
much
true.
rather be the one driving.
It's true. It's true.
Oh, well, so let's open the private ledger
Yeah.
because no one gets to see your balance sheet of burdens when you're
Mhm.
at the top. Like you say, you can have moments of vulnerability, but generally,
Mhm.
you have to bring the part of you that's like, this is going to work out. We're going to figure it out. Here
Yeah.
we go. And not the messy books inside.
Yeah.
Can you share with us one cost that you have paid for being in leadership?
There are a lot. Peace in a lot of ways, and I don't mean I think I have a lot less opportunity for rest and for peace, true peace. Business ownership at my level, with as many irons as I have in the fire, requires a certain amount of vigilance. It doesn't have to be hypervigilance, and that's the work I do
Mm.
with you, candidly. But it does require a certain level of vigilance, which can take away from your ability to ever truly and totally relax like other people do.
Yeah.
I've advised a lot of businesses. I've been near a lot of people in business. I did not understand that what I call the low key simmer of the pot until I was
Yeah.
in this seat. It's just always on. There's just never
Yeah.
an off. People say, "Are you going to take a week of vacation and just unplug?" That doesn't happen. And the feedback that the world, people who've read books at the business section at Barnes and Noble want to tell you, like, oh, that's not true. Everybody can. And it's like, yeah, that's not until you're here. You just kind of don't know until you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to say I don't have a happy life. It's not to say that I don't have peace at times. It's not that. It's just I'm always on some
Yeah.
level.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a cost. That costs taxes a lot of areas of your life.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why every person who sits in the office of president visibly ages
100%.
dramatically over the 4
Hmm.
years or the 8 years they're there. Yeah.
Hmm.
What is one invisible asset you didn't realize you had at the time?
This isn't my asset, but this is like a gift I get that no one else
Okay.
gets. So I get to see everything. When you're at the very top of the pyramid, so to speak, and we can have an argument later or a discussion later about hierarchical leadership, but it works here. And so I am the top of the pyramid. The buck stops here. And as a result,
Mm-hmm.
I get to see everything. And the asset, the win that I get that nobody else gets is that I get to watch all these little places of growth in individuals. And I get
Mm-hmm.
to watch all these wins, every single one of them. Little things that are going really right, or moments where mistakes were made and maybe nobody knows that I saw it, but then I watched them clean it up. And there's something for me in that. It also gives me access to what I call good power. I
Mm.
have the ability to make changes. I have more power than other people have. And you
Mm-hmm.
can do a lot of things with power. And this is not to say that I've always been amazing with power. I'm still, I'll forever be a work in progress in handling my own relationship to power. But I think I do a pretty good job of doing good power. And because of that, I have the ability, the asset is to make changes. I can make things happen in people's lives that fundamentally alter the course of their lives. And it can be done in secret, which is my favorite way to do it, honestly. Where just they know and I know and maybe a small select crew. And then you watch people and their families and things like that just change. And that's an asset that I think a lot of business owners in this country flex and do it the same exact way that I do, quietly
Mm.
and privately for reasons we can discuss later. A lot of them just have to do with there's a reason that some of the largest gifts are given anonymously. And there's something in that. And that's an asset. That's my favorite thing. That'll
Mm.
be the thing I miss maybe when I don't do this anymore.
Mm.
There are things I won't miss, but that'll be one.
So I would take from that, because that is a gift you receive, or that's a benefit you get from doing the job you do. I would take from that that your invisible asset is how much you love people.
Yeah, I do. And further to that, I not only love them, but I believe that it is my dharma to help people rise. That is not to say that every person needs to become a CEO. That might not be in their path.
No.
But one of the reasons that I was gifted the way I was to take a person who might not know that they're capable of more and give them the place and the opportunity and the feedback, both good and constructive, to do that. And I'm gifted in doing that because I care for them. I think everybody who works for me knows that I care for them. I think they would say, just as my kids would, she is firm, but she's
Mhm.
loving. And I think that they would say that in sincerity.
I think there are fewer, better compliments, but we are in some ways cut from the same cloth. Equal parts huge loving heart and don't mess with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us one investment. I mean, you've kind of covered this, but maybe there's something else. One investment that you're making now for your well being or your soul.
I'm really doubling down. So when things get economically tough and you're a person like I am, you just talked about that big heart. So this actually parlays perfectly into this. Then it's very hard for me to justify continuing to have the support that I need because that's an expense or that's a use of time. Like assets are all of all different kinds. There's time, there's energy, there's attention, there's money. Obviously, there's all of those things. And sort of when you're in my spot, there's this question of whether I should be doing that. whether I should be investing in that. So, truth is, though, maybe there's no more important time to have that, to have a coach. I do my coaching with you. I have a personal trainer for my physical body. I have
Mm-hmm.
somebody that helps me with some Ayurvedic practices and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. I need all of those things right now in order to make sure that I continue to, as I said earlier, come out and really lead from a place of believing that better is coming. Because I do believe that. But some days I need to make sure that I'm strong enough to still have the ability to come on out and say that and to be
Mm-hmm.
energized when I do.
Yeah, 100%. I I am the same way, even when I've been fairly broke, which has happened a number of times in
Yeah.
my life. I always spent more probably than most average middle class or even maybe upper middle class people on support and care for my body and my spirit
Yep.
because I can't do this alone.
That's right. That's right. And I think every CEO and business owner, leader has to have a place where they can go to say the shit that can't stay in our bodies and
Mhm.
to literally dump. And I mean, it sucks for you having, I mean, you're on the other end of my pile there, right? So like,
It doesn't.
sorry, but you know what I mean? Like there has to be sort of a
No.
place to go get that out. It has to leave, right?
Mhm.
And a word about that place. And I said I would come back to this because this is really, really important and I think relevant to your listeners. The higher you go, the more successful you get, the more people come to your door claiming to be the people that are here to help. I wasn't born in this role. I have been burned. I have had to learn who's there for my best interests and who's here for theirs. I have become very, very clear that I don't get advice on areas in my life from people whose services are in those areas in my life. So, for example, I'm not going to take investment advice like a should I do this or not from somebody who stands to profit from either side of
Mhm.
that transaction. Does that make sense? Somebody has to have no
Totally.
skin in the game other than I want you to be okay, Meg. I want
Yeah.
you to be okay, Catalynt. So the advisors in my life, most of the people who give me good, true, solid advice are people who, just as a rule of thumb, tend to bill me for their time, not people who get a commission based on my decision that I make.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
tend to be people who come from a business where the professional service is what's being offered and I'm paying for the service and not for a product. And I think that's so important because I like the road analogy a lot, but the darker that road is and the more there's, construction and things are crazy, the more lights are also going to be coming at you. And there are people who know that. They know that right now you don't have to be a huge student of economics to know right now is a really uncertain time in business. It's a great time to go out and scoop up people out of their misery and sell them a false bill of goods and ride
Mhm.
on that misery. I have had to
Mhm.
learn to be careful of that. And I have had to learn to trust my gut when it comes to those people. And then when I find the people that I trust, I pay them and I use them for their gifts and I
Mhm.
accept their offering to me. And I think that is something that it's just so hard. It's so hard. It's not talked about often enough. How many businesses do you know? I'm sure you hear it all the time. They're like, "Oh, my ideal client type is a high net worth individual who da 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 da." And it's like, well, shit. Like,
Sure.
you know what I mean? Everybody's sort of
Mhm.
coming at you, and so you have to find people that have the right intention behind that, and whose
Mhm.
only desired outcome is for you to be okay and your business to be okay, if
Yeah.
that's the side they're in.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I'll just be, wow, I'm not even sure what I'm going to say about this, but I feel like I can be transparent in identifying that eventually in my business, I did target folks. Target sounds so mercenary, but let's be honest. If you're in business, you have to make a profit. You have to sell your services and receive funds. That's how commerce works. And I used to be like, I think, a lot of helpers and healers and feelers who make that their business. I used to be very wary of ever coming across mercenary, ever being like, oh, nobody likes sales, nobody likes marketing, blah.
Hmm.
And I'm almost 20 years in now, and I just had to get good with being like, yes, I'm here to make a sale.
Yeah.
And I'm also very clear that I will not take someone's money who I cannot help.
Right.
I am here as a helper, and this is just the exchange. And I I'm a better person to help because I know I let people go when it's not the right time or when they complete or whatever. I have really strong financial and emotional integrity, and I'm a better person to serve this client than lots of people who don't.
Yeah. And I think there's nothing wrong with wanting to make money. First of
No,
all, it gets weird when people, and you're right. I bet it's even harder in the healing space. I'm not there, but
so
that's not my. But
it's terrible.
but there's also a lot of judgment and yuck, in that space too. I even find it like even within the community sometimes, like when I'm doing my yoga gig or whatever too. And like,
Mm-hmm.
here's the deal: if you're helping out somebody at my level, what do you think my days are spent doing? I'm trying to make money. So I look at
Mm-hmm.
another person who gets what that's about. Like, yeah, you're doing it too. Like we're both
Mm-hmm.
doing this. And the worst thing somebody could do is come to me and act like making money or wanting to make money or have a
Is
profitable
bad.
business is bad. I'm not
Yeah.
interested in that. I've already sorted that
No.
self.
Yeah.
And so I think what it comes down to is really is your service that you're bringing that I'm paying you to do is the intention behind that to help me,
Yeah.
which then in turn helps you,
Sure.
or is it to push me in a direction which helps you more than I'm being helped? For me, I'm always looking at
Right.
the intention
Yeah.
of equilibrium, right?
Yeah.
And if we're both intending to make money, we should be, right? I want you to be on that wavelength with me, candidly,
Absolutely.
because you're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to keep me on that wavelength. But
And you
if
don't want that hidden shadow shit
no, not
in a
at
person
all.
who's pretending like they don't want to make money or that that's
No.
not part of the goal
Yes.
because that's a lie. That's going to be a lie with anybody unless they are independently wealthy,
Well, and if
which,
it's your
good
truth,
for
you
them.
can't help me. Do you know what I mean? And
Right.
it doesn't make you a bad
Yeah.
person, but if your truth is, I don't believe that anybody should have money and everybody should have the same and da da da, that's great. I'm not there though. I've
Mm-hmm.
got 60 families. Some of them have kids in braces and mortgage payments and things like that. I got to turn a profit here. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's sort of a thing where I feel like what I'm looking for is the intention of that and the intention for both people, myself included, to be
Mm-hmm.
taken care of fairly.
Yeah.
And fair compensation can be high compensation, like
Mm-hmm.
for the service provider and then the return for me. Where it gets skewed is when people look at someone in my position as a potential target to take advantage of. And
Absolutely. You're not a pinata,
that's
right?
right.
And that's
That's right.
and I love that you're bringing this up because I think that is one of the big causes of that loneliness at the
Yeah,
top is that so many people either are reliant on you to know what to do all the time and need your help, some of whom are supposed to be reliant on you and some of whom are not,
that's
but
right.
still look at you and say, "Oh, you're a leader. Let me fall down in front of you so you can pick me up." But also people who want to unethically get some of the cash.
Yeah,
And I mean, they say that about celebrities, right? They mostly only have friends from before they were famous because you just can't trust anybody who comes
yeah,
along after.
I get it. There's also sort of a mentality, and I'm going to speak really broadly here because I talk to a lot of people. I, like you, have a lot of people who have reached a level of success in their life and then come from background. There's an energetic shift that has to happen. And I still need to do more of my own work here of what happens when you do become in possession of more. How do we deal with our own guilt and even sometimes perhaps shame about that? And if you're
Mm.
not careful, someone who smells that unresolved part of you can
Mm-hmm.
want to come take advantage of that. And then there's this dialogue of
Yeah.
like, you have more than you personally need, so you should give it to me.
Let me alleviate you of this burden
Yeah.
of guilt by taking the money that's causing it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that gets
That's
into
not
a whole
okay.
different conversation because I want to be a person who is compassionate and things like that, but I also need to be honest and say that a huge part of how I got here was a tremendous amount of self-accountability, self-work, self-reflection, picking myself up from a lot of dusty places that I created for myself and
Mm.
clambering my way through to my path.
Mm.
I am not then to be expected to just pay for somebody to avoid their own all the time. And that is the misconception. Because if you're
Mm.
good, you can pull on my heartstrings. Remember what it was like when you were here, Meg? It was so dark. And it was. The first year after I quit drinking was shit.
Mm.
But if I bail somebody out of that first year, I can guarantee you they're not getting to year two. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like that in so many things in life. And so when you throw money into that and you throw people's energy around that into that, it gets really scary because then I start to understand some of the viewpoints that I used to judge. And that's a
Mm.
whole new world of opening up.
Yeah.
But the point is to have a place to go to roll around in that a little bit, where then nobody's going to see your soft underbelly of that and kick you there. Because all of
Yeah.
that comes up. Business is never just business. All of
No.
those things come up.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I don't sit in a CEO spot. I mean, I'm the CEO of my small company, but I walk through life with a lot of leadership in lots of other ways. And when I was in grad school, I had a very like seminal moment where we were doing self-evaluations and we had to do them with our cohort. So
Hmm.
like a group of people who were in our same peer level, and this is when I was in my 20s. I was much earlier in my personal work, obviously. And I was like, I know I'm doing lots of things well, I say to my peers. Can you guys tell me what I'm not doing well? Like, what am I missing? Because I was kind of like, what else am I supposed to be doing here?
Hmm.
I feel like I'm doing well, but is there stuff to work on? Is there some meat here? And they just laid into me. I mean, this is
Mm.
my story, my experience, but it was really painful. I was crying and I felt like, oh, here's all the things I'm doing wrong. I mean, imagine a handful of therapists in training,
Yeah, yeah,
um, seeing somebody who normally has a lot of self possession turning and offering their underbelly. And some of them took advantage of that and
yeah.
decided to kick me there. And there was a person that I was able to go to, be like, oh, I need to fix all these things about myself. And she was like, absolutely not.
Hmm.
Absolutely not. And what they did was so inappropriate. They saw someone powerful expose themselves to just take it, and they
Yeah,
unloaded their projections and their garbage onto you. And maybe there's like 10% there for you, but the rest of it, mm-mm.
yeah,
And I just had to learn that, plus social media. I've been a very public social media figure for a long time because extroversion, I process a lot of stuff and I share a lot of wisdom. And I used to share much more openly on social media, and I would share stuff that I was in process of.
hmm,
And I quickly learned to stop doing that.
yeah,
I will share after I am in a good place about something, or if I have a very specific ask, but otherwise, the unfettered masses will just irresponsibly crowd into my vulnerable space and make a
yeah,
mess.
yeah. Well said. I was going to make a joke earlier about your experience with all the therapists and go, and how did that make you feel?
It made me feel bad. It made me feel very bad. I felt very bad.
Listen,
Yeah.
it's one where it's like it is a skill, isn't it, to have somebody to learn to have somebody come and tell you not only like I think people like myself, and I can hear that you're in this category too. We actually welcome the constructive criticism in some way,
Mhm.
right? We want
Yeah.
to constantly improve and whatnot. But it's radical when somebody comes and says, actually, you're good. And
Mm.
just because someone said that doesn't make it so. And that's one
Mm.
of the seasons of my life I find myself in now, learning to trust, like, no, actually, what I've done many times in my life, but I'm in a season right now, what I've done is right for me. And you don't have
Mhm.
to understand that. And you don't have to co sign
Mhm.
on that. And you don't have to get it. And you don't even have to have asked for more perspectives other than the one that you're viewing this through. I know. And that's
Mm.
enough. And I don't know if we can get there by ourselves sometimes. I think that that radical turn from, man, I love constructive criticism. And so maybe then the other side of that is that we're too willing to let too many people in to criticize us. That turn to, I have an inner knowing. I know and I'm okay. I'm a flawed human
Mm-hmm.
being having a human experience like everyone else, but I'm fundamentally okay. I think that's just as radical sometimes as having somebody also offer you a little bit of perspective when you're in the dark as well.
I totally agree. And I'm there, and there's part of me that can cringe when I say something that doesn't fit the mold of how we're supposed to be self deprecating or humble.
Mhm.
I was just with some mutual friends recently, and they were all talking about, well, I'm always trying to, I just need to do better about something. And I was like, nah, I'm good. like, I don't, and I recognize that it's funny, but it's also my truth.
It's
Like,
powerful, yeah. Yeah.
I am always doing the best that I can at this point in my life. And my best isn't the same as the amount of effort that I used to do on different, like everything gets rebalanced and reorganized. But I live a very thought filled, well considered life and I'm present for it. And I exert care in ways that I think make me happy and make other people happy. And
Mhm.
I'm not perfect and I'm never going to be. And everyone's not going to be happy with my choices. That's never going to happen. And I'm good with that. At this
Yeah.
point in my life, I'm like, that's okay. As long as I'm good with it, it's okay that they're not all good with it. And I don't need to be any better.
Right.
I'm just going to keep, like, I'm working on learning Spanish. Like,
Yeah.
there's things that I
Yeah.
would like to do more. And there's times when I miss considering people when I could have, but there's lots of times when I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear that and I just wanted to jump on. Let
Mhm.
me take you to the next question.
Yeah.
What do you wish more leaders felt permission to say out loud?
I was gonna say there's a certain element of me that wants to say, back up,
Yeah.
F off. God, so often we wanna make sure that we don't offend anybody, and I think for most leaders, myself included, we actually truly don't want to. We don't want anybody
Mm-hmm.
to, I really do want people to feel respected in my presence.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I wish that we all had more of the opportunity to say, "Back up. Get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Shut up." I think noise is probably the worst component right now of trying to lead anything in today's
Mm-hmm.
environment. Everybody's now a newscaster. Everybody's now an opinionologist. Everybody's got something to say about everything, right? And there's a lot of, I always used to joke, but it's true. There's a lot of self-taught armchair lawyers and business
Yeah.
people and economists and all of that. Um,
Armchair economists.
yeah, just
Yeah.
shut up. Let me do me. Back up and quit.
Yeah.
But even as I say that to you, I recognize the inherent need and responsibility I have to simply shut them out. So maybe it's not so much the thing to say, and maybe the thing that we need more permission to say more often is help me, you know,
Mm. Yeah.
because it really isn't about getting all of those people to be quiet, is it? It's more about help me come back to myself, come back to my own knowing, come back to my own sense of help me get quiet, help me shut out the
Mm-hmm.
noise. Um, if you're a CEO right now and you're listening to this, if you're there, you clearly, nobody can fake their way into that job. Okay. Like it,
Mm-mm.
if you're there, you have your shit together, you know what to do. You just need more space and somebody to help make some room around you. And that somebody is also you. Nobody's coming to rescue you, so to speak, but to get some help to return to what you know how to do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. This was making me think of I have these quotes or these essays that become the touch points upon which I build my life's foundation. And one of them, when you were saying that, and you said, help me, but it's not like, hey, a bunch of people come in and do stuff. It help me stay with myself. There's an essay by Howard Thurman. It's called For the Inward Journey. And the refrain that gets repeated a lot is keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve.
Mm,
And it talks about I'm just going to read it because it's been really meaningful to me over the years. Despite the dullness and barrenness of the days that pass, if I search with due diligence, I can always find a deposit left by some former radiance, but I had forgotten. At the time it was full-orbed, glorious, and resplendent. I was sure that I would never forget. In the moment of its fullness, I was sure it would illumine my path for all the rest of my journey. I had forgotten how easy it is to forget. There was no intent to betray what seemed so sure at the time. My response was whole, clean, authentic. But little by little, there crept into my life the dust and grit of the journey. Details, lower level demands, all kinds of cross currents. Nothing momentous, nothing overwhelming, nothing flagrant, just wear and tear. If there'd been some direct challenge, a clear cut issue, I would have fought it to the end and beyond. In the quietness of this place, surrounded by the all pervading presence of God, my heart whispers, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. That in fair weather or in foul, in good times or in tempests, in the days when the darkness and the foe are nameless or familiar, I may not forget that to which my life is committed. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve.
That's it.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
got to
that's it.
ask you one last question before we
Hmm.
go. That was a good place to end, but we're not quite there yet. Before we get to the last question, a lot of the people who come on the show, folks who listen, might in some way want to get in touch with you,
Yeah.
maybe for mentorship or to just give you feedback on what your episode meant to them. Is there a place or a way that they could do that that would work for you?
Yeah. My website is megangluth.com. And I think the spelling is probably in your show notes.
It will be, yeah.
It's a great way for people to reach out to me. I always tell people don't send me a private message in LinkedIn because I think I get like 10,000 a day and I'll never read it, even though I want to. But please reach out on my website. And I love connecting with people, like real people. And that's
Mhm.
the best way to do it.
Okay, great. Thank you. For the last question, let's open up the time machine.
Mm.
So if the time machine is here, the door is open, and you can go back to a previous time place in your life, what would you say to an earlier version of yourself?
This actually feels emotional to me because I look at all these moments where I just had no idea what was coming as a result of what I was deciding in those moments. I would tell her, be strong, remember who you are, and you have everything within you to do what's coming next. And that's it. And I would just constantly remind her of that, no matter what, because it's been true. It's interesting that you asked that with the benefit of hindsight, right? Because what would I tell myself now? I'm like, oh shit, I don't know, but
Yeah.
I do
Hmm.
because it's always been. Just hang on, like you have everything you need, and all will be well. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for coming and sharing your immense wisdom with us. I know there's going to be a lot here that people feel validated by and inspired by. So thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. This was cool.
Thanks for everyone for listening to Lonely at the Top. If today's conversation resonated, I hope you'll give yourself even just a moment to pause and reflect on what you might be carrying. You don't have to hold all this alone. If you could use support in taking some of this burden off your shoulders, having a place to express it, getting some deep insight and spiritual help, then you can reach out to me at rachelalexandria.com. If you know another leader who needs to hear this show, please send it their way because, yeah, it's lonely at the top, but it doesn't have to stay that way.